All right, good evening. We're going to call our regular Board of Education of March 17th, 2025 to order and start with the resuscitation of the vision statement. Every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. Tonight, before our public input, we're going to actually start with a resolution for one of our board members. Whereas Laura Simpkin, Board of Education member for the Madison Metropolitan School District, has successfully served on the board since 2022, serving as clerk, as a member of the board's governance committee, a member of the City County Schools Collaborative Committee, and as a delegate representative at the Wisconsin Association of School Boards in 2024. And whereas Laura Simpkin has been a determined advocate for all students and families, especially those in the LGBTQIA+ community, and whereas during her service on the board, Laura Simpkin leveraged her expertise in early childhood and elevated the importance of appropriate staffing and developmentally appropriate instruction in 4K classrooms, helping to influence the board's decisions for 4K expansion and early literacy. And whereas during her service on the board, Laura Simpkin positively contributed to the district's recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, the hiring of a new superintendent, and the passing of the 2024 operating and facilities referenda. And whereas her service and dedication to support student achievement will shape education in our community for generations of young people and inspire the leadership of both the board members they leave behind and those who will follow in their footsteps. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Madison Metropolitan School District Board of Education recognizes and greatly values the contributions of Laura Simpkin and her dedication to MMSD schools. Her work and legacy will continue to have a lasting, positive impact in our schools, our students, our families, and the community. Be it further resolved, this statement will be permanently imprinted in the Board of Education minutes for the meeting of March 17th, 2025. And with that, Laura, we also have a little plaque and a little gift. That to Laura. Board Member Simpkin, we know tonight is not your official last meeting, but we know it's your last regular Board of Education meeting. So we wanted to just take this opportunity. Any comments or reflections that you want to share? You don't have to, but it's up to you.
Sure, I can say a couple things.
Okay.
Boy, I'm glad I didn't read that in advance because that was really beautiful and I loved hearing you read that. Thank you, everybody, very much. I don't think anybody who is here or listening can possibly understand what it is like to be on the Madison Board of Education unless it's something that you are actively doing. And I just want to say this has been a great honor to represent Madison in this way. To truly be able to lift up LGBTQ plus students and staff, and also early childhood in the ways that I can, and then just to advocate for all of our students. In the last 3 years, I've gotten to know you all really well, and I just want to say that I have developed such deep respect for every one of you. You are wonderful, wonderful people. So thank you for doing this with me.
Right, we will move into our public input part of the agenda. Let me just see. There were 54 written statements submitted for this meeting, 35 opposed to the cut in educator allocation for all four of our neighborhood schools, Lapham, Marquette, O'Keefe, and East. 16 opposed to overall educator allocation cuts across the district. 2 opposed to the decreasing of teaching positions at West High School. 1 in support of teachers being on the chopping block last, not first. And with that, we will start with our registered speakers for tonight. I know that we have, I believe, 18 speakers here in person who are registered, and Jesse, 2 online. So we'll start with our online speakers.
Thank you. Our first online speaker is Fair Robert. Is Fair Robert online?
Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
we're ready for your 3 minutes. Yep, whenever you're ready.
I don't know if are we just speaking on what the topic is at hand, or because what I wanted to speak about wasn't about what you were just speaking about. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You are welcome to speak about whatever you would like during your 3 minutes.
Okay. I was just concerned about a position of the building head that was removed from La Follette, and I was just concerned about the placement of the position. We had a great building head there, and I just wanted to see uh, her position restored to her. She's doing a great job. We have a great crew. Um, and I didn't know if this was the forum for that, but I just wanted to speak out and see what was going on, or what could be done about that. Kind of in the loop about what's going on. So I just wanted to see if I could get some type of clarity. That's really what I was calling for.
Great, thank you. Our next speaker is Eric Beckham.
Did you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, my name is Eric Beckham. I'm a custodian 3A at the Follett High School. I was calling in regards of the same as Robert Fair. I was trying to figure out what was going on with the situation with our boss, Taisha Aggie. In the past month, she's been removed out of the school. We're just trying to figure out what happened. Nobody told us anything. She was replaced with a manager, which is unheard of. Since I've been in the district, it's always used to be a building head that's brought over that replaced her. So I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. We had like you said, we got a great crew. We all work hard together. We great team, great chemistry, and I don't understand what happened. She out of the blue, just a whole month she's been gone. Nobody said anything. There's no clarity. Everybody around the school was like, what happened to Todd? Nobody knows what's going on. We're just trying to figure out what's going on. I know that y'all talking about other situations and other issues, but we just trying to figure out what happened. Why is she not back to work? You know what I'm saying? Why is she not at the school that she was supposed to be? So that's all I have for today.
Thank you.
you. Our first registered speaker is Rudy Moore, and then following will be Taisha, I think it's AG, thank you. And as a reminder for our speakers, as you come up, we have 3 minutes. You'll see 3 minutes up on the clock, and on the podium, there's a little box. When you see the yellow light, it means you got about 30 more seconds. Red light means you're kind of out of time. So please wrap up your thoughts and feel free to adjust the mic so we can hear you well.
Okay, how do I sound right now?
Sound good.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm here tonight with my daughter sitting back there. Her name's Roz. Hey, Roz. So I'm here to talk about the allocation, specifically at Lapham, but I know it's district-wide that the issues are currently here. I'd like to ask the board to direct the staff to not allow allocations that are maxed out this early in the planning for next year. 90% of the max class size would make a reasonable number for this early in the planning for next year, but completely maxed out is the wrong spot to be where we are planning for next year. So I'm the parent, one of the parents of Roz back there. She's a first grader at Lapham. Her class size this year is 17, but she is in a cohort of 54, and 54 is an important number here. Her cohort was in their 3K year during COVID, or actually 2K, but yeah, and during the masking and partial reinstatement years. They especially, that cohort I mean, but all second graders moving forward as well, need smaller class sizes to be able to do well, to be able to get the interpersonal communication and the socialization skills that they need to be able to move on to the upper grades. The maximum class size passed for second and third graders right now by the board is 27. 27 is too many. 54 is, half of 54 is 27. So next year, because they had an allocation removed, one teacher was removed from Lapham, that class size, those second graders are both going to be in 27-person classes. For sake of reference, this year, you're going to find out later on in this meeting, in your mid-year report, minute left, there's only 2 classes right now that are at 27 over the whole district. So you're going to have 2 of them in Lapham right now. Lapham's also gone down 2 special educators, special education teachers that need to be reinstated as well. Our area, the district area where we are, has 400 new housing units that are about to come online. There's almost no chance that there aren't going to be more students at the beginning of the school year than are covered for by this 54. And Lapham's going to be scrambling to try and fill that space. At least I hope they will be, because I hope that it wouldn't, you wouldn't be allowed to go past that maximum number, but I'm afraid they might be. So again, just to reiterate, what I'm hoping the board will do is direct the staff to choose a number that's somewhat less than the absolute maximum, so there's room to grow 6 months out from when the school year begins. Say 90%. 90% is a very reasonable number, and it wouldn't create the catastrophe that I see is coming for our second grade classes and my daughter Roz right back there. So thank you.
All right, next up. Taisha, Aji. Did you just tell me that?
It's AG.
AG. I'm sorry about that. And then following will be Calvin Fisher.
So first, I just want to display to everybody, I'm the head custodian of La Follette. This is the shirt design that all custodial I paid for out of pocket as a building custodian. I provided it to my crew. I come to you only after trying to resolve this with the executive director of building service, who instead of reaching a resolution, created a divide. My name is Taisha Agee. I have been with the school district since June of 2013. I have consistently promoted into leadership positions since 2016. I have stellar recommendations and evaluations which have led to my consistent promotions. Having been shouted out this school year 5 times in the La Follette Soulful Scoop. I am heavily involved in community events at MMSD, This past December, I had a contest called My 16 for 16, which assisted 17 students and 2 adults in ensuring Christmas was enjoyable. I hosted and funded the first ever Black Excellence in Trade event, which provided a different route to students being successful on an another path besides college. And even before my Star Village Scholarship at La Follette can be finalized through the MMSD accountant, I have already this year provided $1,500 in funding for events benefiting MMSD students. And with all of that, I am still a parent of 4 MMSD students and a volunteer at as many school events as possible. But still, I find myself fighting for my job. It has been 24 days with minimum communication on what is going on with me employment-wise. Let me tell you what I think led to this. I believe I am being targeted by Rob Larson, Local 60, for not having a driver's license, even though it's not in.
Aisha, or excuse me, Ty, is that your name? I just want to be clear that it's okay for you to share your concerns with the board, but just make sure that it doesn't border on the line of airing personal grievances, especially directed at a staff person. And I just stopped you since you identified someone by name.
Okay, so how should I address that, dude?
You have to especially, and I won't say, so if this is a situation where there has already been a complaint filed,
I don't plan on filing a complaint, y'all.
I know, I'm just saying, if this is a situation, I'm giving you the hypotheticals because I'm not sure. And Jesse, okay, thank you. I didn't want her to lose her time. One, I was gonna say, just keep it high level, so it's not specific to the complaint.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like that applies. And also just make sure you can share your concerns, but that it's not targeted at a specific staff member, okay?
Okay, so, but I think the interpretation of like targeted is really from the person. It's not targeted, I'm just saying my experience, which it involves MMSD people. So I can remove his name, but.
I understand, but we also have a board policy where this isn't a forum to air specific to a staff member. So you're welcome to talk about your experience, but I would just encourage you to keep it as high level as possible because I'd like for you to say whatever it is that you want to say to them.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Yep. I believe I am being targeted for not having a driver's license. Am I allowed to talk about that part? Okay. Even though it's not enforced district-wide, I believe this because I have received threatening and harassing messages from a former employee of the custodial department. This employee should not have this information because it's confidential. This employee sent me threatening messages just last week. These interactions scare me. They scare me because I quote, more time to keep coming after you. They scare me because he has access to confidential information. They scare me for many reasons that I don't have time to get into. I am a proactive employee and manager. I asked for training to make my team more self-sufficient, yet I have been denied training for my custodians and maintenance team. Yet in my departure, these training sessions have been available. I face racial discrimination daily from a district that am I allowed to say that? I face racial discrimination daily from a district that prides itself on an anti-racist model. I am told regularly that I was given my position because I am Black. Let me tell you, I earned my position. I deserve my position. I am the first Black person in this team. I am the first Black person in the history of MMSD to hold my position. I am the only building custodian pouring into my team yearly custodial appreciation. I have contests throughout the year where they take pride in their closets, in their areas, and the cleanliness that they provide. I am a building custodian designing and providing shirts representing unity for custodial and maintenance. In times when morale was declined because of staff shortages, I motivated my team. And how did I motivate them? Through these monthly contests that show them that we breed wonderful custodians over at La Follette. I oversaw La Follette during the entire $85 million referendum in an organized manner while being short-staffed. I have maintained transparent and open communications to ensure this project ran as smoothly as possible. La Follette staff have on numerous occasions confirmed this. I embody the message highlighted that says people, purpose, and pride. This is not by MMSD's actions.
All right, we'll have Calvin Fisher up and then Leland Pam.
All right. Thank you for your time and attention tonight. I'm the parent of a kindergartner at Lapham Elementary with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old as well. Will be coming through the district. And I was shocked to hear about the proposed teaching staff cuts at our schools. Our teachers are the lifeblood of our education system, and we cannot afford to lose them. Madison is growing fast. You heard my neighbor speak about the hundreds and hundreds of units of residences that are being added to our neighborhood every year. And this policy does not seem to give any thought to those new students in those residences who will be enrolling in the district. The proposal pushes classrooms to the brink of overcrowding, and natural growth will push it into formal overcrowding by the district's own definition. Good teachers are also hard to find. If you let them go now, why do you think you can simply come and rehire them in a couple years when our enrollment is bursting at the seams and we can't find enough people to do this very difficult and hard work? The second grade classrooms, as you mentioned, they'll all be at a maximum of 27 students. One new student, that's an overcrowded classroom. And we know there will be growth. The particular second grade teacher who has been cut to facilitate this overcrowding is beloved in our community and is one of the few male teachers who our students have to look up to as role models in their schools. My kindergartner in particular has already said he wants to be in this teacher's classroom in 2 years because this teacher has been such a supportive presence to him in the school, but not if these cuts go through. Lapham is also losing 2 of its 6 special education teachers, a third of its special education teachers. These teachers support the children who most need this extra support, and I can't think of a polite way to say that you are failing them by removing the supports that they need to stay integrated with other students in an integrated learning environment. Finally, the optics are not great on this because in the same report, which you propose a 2% reduction in teaching staff FTE, you're also proposing a 2% increase in admin FTE. Our schools exist to teach our children, not to administer them. If you decide to cut teachers while expanding secondary staff, I think that, with all due respect, means the district is maybe losing sight of its mission here. Our country is facing a historic dismantling of public institutions, and here in Madison, I like to think that we know better than to pull pillars of our community like this. So don't be the accomplices of that effort from the state and federal governments. Help us preserve the education system that our children rely on and build a strong community for us and for our future. Thank you again.
Following Leland will be Catherine Howley.
Hey all, Leland Pan, School Social Worker at La Follette High School, building representative, and also on the board of directors for MTI. First, I'll just briefly say, as a La Follette staff member, it's a privilege to know Ty, and she's an institution in my building, and I hope she gets the answers that she seeks as soon as possible. But I want to speak on the staff allocation cuts proposed, and I want to talk about it more macro level, 2 general points. One being that the lack of transparency in the system, I think, creates an excessive amount of tension between staff and district administrators. When cuts were first announced, for example, we were not given reason as to why they were proposed. That lack of information is fertile breeding ground for misinformation. People are grasping to find the reasons why their lives are being uprooted. I've heard one school claim, for example, that they are facing cuts despite projected enrollment increase, and without transparency in data, it's impossible to verify that or not. Similarly, every single comprehensive high schools union representatives have reported that every comprehensive high schools face cuts to teaching positions, but that's not reflected in the data that was presented to you all last week in the operations work group. It was not broken down by building, for example. And because of that lack of transparency, it creates staff distrust in the information that you're getting. I know most of you well enough to know that you desire staff's retention and strong staff, and have done many things to fight for staff. And so that's why I want you to have the complete picture on these things, much like we want the complete picture. Regarding, for example, enrollment, which seems to be a driving factor in the allocation decisions, there's no transparency to staff about the calculations. We've heard there are multiple ways to project enrollment. We have no idea which calculations used to determine allocation. There's staff skepticism about enrollment's projections accuracy. We would love to see the enrollment projections going back years for each building and compare that to the actual enrollment outcomes to see what is accurate and what isn't. If you could see that the enrollment projections by building are inaccurate, you also are better equipped to make decisions to correct our district processes. That brings me to second point. I'm stealing language from one of you that I had a conversation with, but there needs to be slack in the system, right? Being quote unquote overstaffed and having a few, say, high school classes of 18 is far better than trying to keep everything running as close to the limit as possible just to save money, right? The slack is needed because that 18 could easily become 30, right? With newcomers, families moving in, the housing instability we see in Madison, students pushed out of charter and private schools, and other unforeseen circumstances. That slack also means less stressed staff. It means students who have at least one class where they have more time to get to know their teachers, and less strain on support staff like myself, because teachers have the time and capacity to address lower level crises before it comes to me. In my opinion, it's entirely reasonable for passing such an operations referendum to stake out a position that regardless of enrollment projections, building allocations should not go down. The staff and community expectation of such a large operations referendum is to have some relief from austerity. And if the community sees that after voting for such a referendum, their kids' favorite teachers are still cut or moved around, the appetite for any future referendum is removed. Thank you.
All right, we'll have Catherine Howley come up, and then following will be Alana Torres Bull, I think it is. Or sorry if I mispronounced that.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay? Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Catherine Howley. I'm a Lapham parent of a first grade student with an IEP and a board member at the Lapham Marquette PTG. I've recently gotten very familiar with our elementary school and therefore most of its occupants as I work closely with building operations to solve the overheating problem that our 1940s charmer has been experiencing for some years now. Many of us are here tonight to express deep unrest about the continued cuts to our schools. In my personal experience, we're talking about the East Side schools. We've learned from our leadership that Lapham will be losing a second grade teacher. My son, George, is in the same class as Roz, who we have in our audience back here, as well as 2 special education assistants. This plan is teeing us up for 2 classrooms of 27 second graders each. Most parents and educators will raise an eyebrow here because we all know that is too crowded of a room for kids that young. Then we add that we are losing 2 special education assistants who are crucial to the fulfillment of the IEP commitments from the district, all occurring in a classroom that averages around 77 degrees with no operating windows. We are setting our teachers up for failure, and that will absolutely fall down on our kids. Well, we hear that other parts of town are receiving more teachers in similar primary grades, and then those were removed. And then we also learned that O'Keefe and East are also getting significant cuts, not insignificant cuts. These are significant cuts. The cuts on the East Side, especially affecting, the cuts on the East Side, especially affecting 6th and 2nd grade, will create large class sizes at a particularly sensitive developmental age. And at all of these schools, students who are supported by SEAs will be negatively impacted the most. Also in the same, also in reports, we see that enrollment projections for students with disabilities is expected to rise. Calvin spoke with the optics of this. How are we supposed to rationalize the reduction of special education assistance when we know that the enrollment of children who are differently abled is going to rise? How do we rationalize that? This is not the best that we can do for our schools and our students. Our direct ask is this. Number 1, please reconsider the staffing cuts to the East Side schools and all throughout. Lapham, Marquette, O'Keefe, and East High schools are what I'm talking about specifically. These schools have seen these cuts year after year, and the tailspin that it ensures leaves us in an already hard transition nearly impossible with long-term subs and 30+ kids in a room. Number 2, lower the maximum allowable students in 2nd grade to be more in line with that of 1st grade. We are talking about a cohort of 54 students that were 3 years old at the start of the pandemic. We need the hands-on and focused community of a manageable classroom developmentally. Number 3, a very repeat theme for tonight, is provide transparency on how these allocations are made. Our teachers and our parents work hard endlessly to make a warm and welcoming environment, and it takes all hands on deck. We understand that these are complicated issues and that decades-long practice of underfunding schools is something we cannot fix tonight, but we do need to be prepared for what we know is coming. And we do need to provide for what we know our school needs. Personally, I have 20 years of experience in the practice of architecture and construction, and I've gotten very, very deep into the PRA report from November of 2023.
Catherine,
Mm.
I'm gonna need you to wrap up.
Sure.
Like 10 seconds.
Sure.
I'm so sorry.
I encourage the board to reconsider the recent allocations and how our East Side schools and community continue and help our East Side schools and our community continue to flourish and grow. We are excited to welcome all new students and provide the warmth and safe educational environment that we promise every single day. And we are asking this board for their support in this growth. We literally cannot do it without these changes.
Hi. Hello, board. Thank you for having me. My name is Alana Torres Brun. And although this is applicable to every high school, I am representing myself, remembering that year after year, we feel like we are asked to do more with less. I am here to advocate more classroom teachers and the effect of these decisions in classrooms, especially for specialized programs like DLI, to be more equitable. DLI is the district's dual language immersion program for which I have taught since 2017 at West High. Families enrolled in this program are committed to it from the beginning of the year's student's academic career in kindergarten or first grade. The population is balanced by taking the number of enrolled families and doubling the numbers with monolingual English speakers. These families have sacrificed, committed, and dedicated time to the goal of graduating from high school as bilinguals. At times, we have failed them at the secondary level. We have had inadequate or insufficient staffing for regular classes, elective classes, and especially support for special education students. In 2025, the 2025 and 26 school year is rapidly approaching with the same challenges as the start, compounded by the fact that as a school, we have experienced staffing cuts. The DLI program does not have its own budget, meaning that in secondary schools, the social studies department is responsible for hiring the necessary staff to cover all regular classes and also DLI classes. At West High, overall enrollment has increased. Similarly, and particularly, the Spanish dual immersion program has continued its upward trend. In 2024 and 26 and 25, we started with 138 students and have increased in the same year to 146. That is counting like the newcomers in the program. And that is only in 9th grade. For 2025 and 26, there are 145 students enrolled in Spanish language arts for 9th grade. Each year, this pattern of increases can be seen from March to the end of the following years as families who bring their students to West take advantage of the opportunity to continue studying and raising their academic standards in both English and Spanish. Now with the numbers predicted for the next school year, we have 5 history sections of about 30 students each in grade 9 and 10, while there are 3 or 4 sections of semester-long history classes in grade 11 and 12 continue to grow. As a compromise, we will need to add new sections, hire new bilingual staff, and increase the number of students per section, especially in grades 11 and 12. Both solutions have their additional problems, such as, and I'm about to wrap up, such as a shortage of bilingual staff, budget constraints, and the social studies department, and the impact of unethical class sizes. DLI needs its own budget in order to deliver adequate education, sponsor activities, academic cultural field trips, and especially celebrate families' commitment and students' success. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Karen, I believe it's Herrera. If I mispronounce, I apologize. Karen. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Tracy Drill, and then Jesse, Tracy Drill, and then Andrea Misarelli.
Hi, my name is Tracy Drill. I'm a special ed teacher at Senate Middle School. I'm here today not to advocate for an easier workload for teachers, but to try to champion the well-being and success of our middle school students. We must address the undeniable reality that our current extended school day is detrimental to their overall development. Let's be honest, by 4:30, the energy in our classrooms is palpable. It's the energy of exhaustion. Our students, many of whom have been in school for over 8 hours, are drained. Their ability to focus, absorb information, and engage in any meaningful learning is severely compromised. This is not conducive to an academic excellence. We're also witnessing the impact of their lives outside of school. Many are focused to sacrifice part-time jobs, valuable extracurricular activities, and crucial family times. These experiences are not just mere luxuries. They're essential to developing well-rounded individuals at age 14. Furthermore, 10% of our students leave at 3:30 because that's the time they have to leave. And they're missing vital instructional time, creating inequitable educational experiences. I understand your argument that the teachers only have 25 hours of direct student time, but let me be clear. I did not enter this profession to simply clock in and clock out. I, like almost all of my colleagues, are deeply invested in the success of each of these students. We are not heartless. I will not turn a student away. Oops, sorry, 25 hours has been met. I can't help you go to the bathroom. I can't help you with your problems. I can't let you eat lunch with me. I can't let you, it's 25 hours. We don't do that. This current schedule forces our students to travel home in the dark during the winter months, and it raises serious safety concerns. Most of in our area, we don't even have sidewalks. So this extended school day, I was told, is necessary for busting logistics. However, we've given them 2 years to fix these problems. We can't continue to place the burden of their inefficiencies on the shoulders of our students and staff. We can't allow logistical challenges to dictate the educational experiences and well-being of our students. We are not advocating for a reduction in the quality of our education. We're advocating for a more efficient and humane approach to learning. We're advocating for a system that prioritizes the holistic development of our students. Please do something about this. Please. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Misarelli, and I teach 8th grade math at Wright Middle School. I've been speaking here for the past 2 to 3 years about student-centered staffings. One of our demands is no cuts to our school-based staff who are facing our students every day. The school board should direct administration not to put any cuts to our schools, that the cut should be elsewhere of staff that's with our students every single day. Second, I want to speak on is creative HR solutions. Over the past few years, this school board has spent over $1 million on HR consultants. That's the same amount of money that you're looking to save, basing on doubling everybody's deductibles from 100 to 200 and 200 to 400. The percent amount saving from all the healthcare options that were listed in the slides are less than 1% of our budget money. Surely we can find 1% of the budget money somewhere else than changing our healthcare. What we should be looking for are different healthcare solutions to get our numbers down to the green. Asking for negotiating group counselors at our schools around to provide counseling on dealing with student stress, not taking stress home with worries, other proactive things for mental health issues, physical activities for staff so that our healthcare starts going down to the green, and in the red so we get better rates. There are many other things that you could do as well and to be looking into. Also, we could be looking into hiring some consultants for taxes. You know, a lot of people have to pay fines due to the district not taking out a lot. Those could be at our schools to help fix some mistakes and restore some trust. The last thing I want to speak about is our middle school times. Our times must change. When did this change happen? When first student took over. It was told that because the busing couldn't handle it to do our normal 7-hour school day. These decisions should be made on what's best for our students, not what the busing company can't come through on all their promises. I recommend that you guys put in an RFP for new busing just for middle schools, that we can fix our mistakes and make decisions putting our students first, because that's what our students deserve. Thank you.
All right, next we'll have, thank you. Dominic Johan Burkle. All right, you feel free to correct me when you get on up here, and then following will be Jessica Hotz, I think it is. All right.
That didn't work. Is that about right? We good? Hi, everyone. Good evening, board members. My name is Dominic Johan Burkle. I teach physics at Madison West High School. I'm also the father of 2 children that attend East Side schools. I'd like to share with you, if I may, an email that I received 3 days ago, March 14th, from a former student of mine, a current sophomore at UW-Madison. Dear Mr. Dominic, that's what they call me. I hope this email finds you well. I am reaching out because earlier this week, I had a physics exam and found myself applying fundamental concepts I had learned during my time in your class to help me reason through several of the more challenging exam questions. While many of my peers were struggling to understand the material, the analogies and emphasis on key concepts you had made throughout math physics and AP physics have stuck with me and aided my success tremendously. Moments ago, I received that exam score back and found that I had earned 100% for the first time. I got it. I've come close several times, but that perfect score has eluded me for several semesters. I can say with confidence that my score and more general enjoyment in physics would be significantly lower had I not taken your classes. Because of this, I would like to thank you for the knowledge and fond memories you have imparted on me, as they have certainly changed my relationship with education for the better. Now, I share this email not to pat myself on the back, but to highlight the sentiment in that final line of the student's email. The knowledge and memories you have imparted have changed my relationship with education for the better. That is why I became a teacher. That's why any teacher becomes a teacher, to change students' relationship with education for the better. Now, next school year, West High School will have 6 fewer full-time teachers. Other high schools across the district are facing similar situations, as are middle schools and elementary schools across the district. If you as a board genuinely believe that a teacher's ability to change students' relationships with education is independent of class size, then cutting the positions of those who work directly with students on a daily basis makes sense. If, however, you believe a teacher's ability to change students' relationship with education for the better is achieved through smaller classes, then I ask you not to reduce the number of teachers at different schools across the district, but to look elsewhere for cost-saving measures. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Hotz. I've been teaching history and social studies for 25 years at Madison East. Dr. Gothard, you sent out an email Friday night indicating that operations referendum was for sustained funding and vital initiatives and our staff. Problem is we're always at the end of that list. I think that's the problem. Student-facing staff should come before initiatives. The most consistent message MTI members have been giving us and the district for as long as I can remember is that there are too many district initiatives. These days, essentially all initiatives are created autocratically by district administrators that have not been in a classroom for any length of time, are out of touch with the way our schools work these days, and maybe see the need to develop initiatives to justify their positions. If that's the case, then those are the staff we should cut. Despite what Dr. Gothard said in his letter Friday, when it comes to initiatives, we've been treated not as partners whose feedback and questions are invaluable. Our feedback has not been solicited, appreciated, nor heard. Our autocratic change, one autocratic change that's being put into effect at East next year is the elimination of required courses in multiple, if not all, core content areas. For example, there would be no required coursework in social studies, just 3 credits. This makes me livid. This is fascist. Democracy requires an educated populace. And what do? We make it so students can graduate high school without learning anything about US government, US history, how to vote, civil rights, economics, world history, or cultures other than their own. No student has to take a class that includes the Holocaust, the history of labor, Native American sovereignty, or Hmong history, all of which are mandated by state law. I never thought I'd see this kind of stuff in Madison. We're erasing history, and we might as well be Florida or Oklahoma. I believe this has something to do with the move to standards-based grading, something classroom teachers have had absolutely no voice in at all. Not only do I wonder how much money we've spent on this autocratic move without teacher input or respect, but when will those of us that teach 2 to 3 standalone courses get the time to totally change their whole curriculum before next year? I certainly have to do that. We are not getting the time. This is why teachers want to eliminate most initiatives, because even if they're worthwhile, they add exponentially more work to staff without input or feedback and without the time to make them successful. Initiatives don't work without staff buy-in. We're not being asked anything. We've had this inundated with us with high schools since COVID. Dumbing down curriculum, pathways, eliminating prerequisites, the 30-70 grading split, eliminating required courses, standardized based grading, and now there's talk of weighted GPA. We can't handle all those things at once. We don't get a time to breathe after one of them comes before another one dismantles it. This hurts teacher retention, destroys any positive relationship between school-based staff and the district, and honestly makes it harder for staff to come to school every day. We're disheartened and angry. We can't trust the MMSD for anything, to do the right thing at any time. If we're concerned about the wellness of school-based staff or retention of staff for the sake of our kids, we must significantly slow down these initiatives to have more time and allow real input for staff. The districts show no real effort to lessen the burden of initiatives. They will not do this on your own. Please give some direction to retain school-based staff and consider eliminating only those that make more work for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have Amanda, I think this is Forsney. Okay, thank you. And then following will be Corey Rich. Corey or Carrie Rich?
Okay. Hi, my name is Amanda Forche. My pronouns are she, they, and I am a teacher at East High School. I'm here speaking with regards to the budget cuts and the staff surplusing that is occurring as a result. Please excuse my voice. I have come down with a head cold recently. I don't have enough sick days to fully recover, so I've been teaching all day with a voice like this. To be honest, it has been both shocking and upsetting to hear about these proposed budget cuts, especially in light of both the recent operating referendum and the district's vision that, quote, every child will graduate ready for college, career, and community, end quote. With the proposed staff surplus at East High School alone, we would lose nearly 7 full-time teachers that have preparing the very students that MMSD claims are so important. This reduction in staff would lead to increased class sizes, decreased elective opportunities, among other effects, and none of this improves the odds that, again, quote, every child will graduate ready for college, career, and community. I will admit, I am not impartial here. I am one of the staff members who was approached about being surplus from East High School. Due to a variety of factors, this will be the 4th time that I have been surplused from a school. 2 here and 2 at a previous district. Being surplused again would mean that when I start my 9th year of teaching in fall of 2025, I would be doing so at the 5th school in my career. It is worth noting that after 3 of these 4 experiences, the schools ultimately decided to hire for the position I was forced to vacate, a position I was told there was simply no room in the budget for. Based on the differences in projected enrollment versus actual enrollment in previous years, I am greatly concerned that that exact situation will happen again. There are consequences to this repeated disruption. We as teachers have to become acclimated to several different school cultures instead of growing and building upon one that is familiar. We have to start fresh in building relationships with students, an aspect of teaching that is crucial to their academic growth. It becomes harder for us to celebrate our students' long-term successes because we aren't around to see them. I will be finishing my 8th year of teaching, and I have taught 9th grade students for 7 of those 8 years. However, I have still not ever seen a freshman class that I have taught graduate while I am at their school. This has been brutal for me and my students throughout the years as we grow together, only to have that growth severed and fractured over and over again. I implore you to reconsider the budget cuts that will lead to these teacher surpluses. And if you choose not to reconsider, I have a challenge for you. Take the time to come into each classroom and explain to the children of FMSD why their teachers are leaving. If this sounds like a daunting task, one that you don't have the skills for, I completely understand. But then it seems that keeping the people who do have those skills where they are should be prioritized in the budget. Thank you for your time.
Corey or Carrie?
Corey.
Corey, okay. And then following you, Corey, will have Maria Brown.
Just wanted to start off by thanking you all for having me tonight. I'm Corey Rich. I'm the director of the Legacy Program for Operation Fresh Start. So I wanted to come here and thank you all for your partnership with Operation Fresh Start and our Legacy Program. And just acknowledge that your willingness to partner with Operation Fresh Start and similar programs in Madison is allowing students to find success through non-traditional pathways. And I wanted to share some examples of that, or one in particular, to highlight that success doesn't stop at the receipt of the diploma. So we've got one of our upcoming graduates from our Conservation Academy. He graduated through our Legacy Program about 1.5 years ago. This is a young man who had disconnected from high school, who was not on track to graduate, and had disengaged from school. So graduated with us about 1.5 years ago. Since then has re-engaged, earned that high school diploma, and joined our Conservation Academy, where he has since earned his pre-apprenticeship in urban forestry, his driver's license, federal certifications in wildland firefighting, and state certifications in chainsaw use, and is currently sitting on 3 separate offers from the city of Madison for employment, and has made it through to the 2nd round of hiring for 2 different positions for Dane County. So this is a young man who a short time ago did not have a pathway forward, and through our partnership, which you were key in, is got a legitimate pathway towards self-sustaining employment. And that's to say nothing of the increases in confidence that this young man has experienced. So just wanted to come here and thank you all for that. And also say that it's not a unique situation for us. We see this success often with our students. I'd like to invite you all to come experience a little bit of that with us. We've got 2 upcoming graduations. So next week on Tuesday, the 25th and Thursday, the 27th, both at 4 p.m. at Operation Fresh Start, we have MMSD graduations occurring. And then also wanted to invite you all and everyone else. We have a school board candidate forum at Operation Fresh Start tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So please feel free to join us. Thank you for your time.
Before I start, I just want to say thanks because I live in an Operation Fresh Start home. So. Maria Brown, Valmont Hamilton Middle School. I'm here on behalf of staff all across the district to ask you, the board, to work with Superintendent Gothard to find ways to work to balance the budget that do not reduce our numbers of staff that work face-to-face with students. We know that you're working to be fiscally responsible. I'm a taxpayer myself, and I appreciate that, but you cannot continue to balance the budget on the backs of hardworking teachers, educational support professionals, and student service staff. You cannot continue to increase class size and pass increased insurance costs onto these same folks. It's time to look at Doyle, central office, whatever title you'd like to give it, and see where staffing and costs can be reduced without impacting our school staff's ability to provide the quality education our students deserve. It's time to truly put kids first. A side note, on behalf of folks who don't know they own fines for the district's tax withholding error, the district needs to do more. My school just hosted the Badger Invitational Science Olympiad competition and finished in 2nd place. We had 50 schools from the Midwest participating in this. Shockingly, I'm sure, the staff involved in organizing this did not have time to notice the short turnaround for applying for financial assistance for the overdue taxes. Do the right thing. Extend this deadline and help employees manage an issue that is your error. Thank you.
All right, next up will be Emily Miller. And then following will be Mark Reichner.
Greetings. Thank you so much for being here and your service. My name's Emily Miller, and I'm a social studies teacher at West High, but I am also a parent of a current junior and a parent of 2 Madison alums. I'm here to talk about something which does not involve money, go figure, or allocation, but which, like smaller class sizes, does improve student learning. And it's something which you all have the power to fix with the flick of your keyboard. Curious? What I'm about to talk about is the high school calendar. Specifically, we need more instructional days with students and fewer staff-only days at the high school level. Let me explain. Last week at the high school level, we only had 3 days of instructional time. And the week prior to that, we only had 4 days. It's gotten to the point where even students, even my own son, who is really not the most academically driven, was asking, hey, which days do we have school this week? So we had Friday off for conferences, Monday off for PD, even though we had just had another PD 2 weeks prior, and Tuesday was a junior only day for the ACT. Well, officially it was virtual learning for other students, but how many students actually engaged in that virtual learning? And this was all happening just 11 days before spring break. We have seen a steady erosion of instructional time with students since Cheatham was superintendent. But this year it reached an illogical extreme with a total of 10 staff-only days, 1 each month,
And the first one being only 2 weeks after the start of the school year when we're trying to establish routines and build community. We also have missed instructional time due to 1 staff wellness day, 2 days for conferences, 2 days off from classes for standardized testing. This means that we have only 168 instructional days at the high school level. Trust me, I've counted. In AP classes, like Dominic mentioned there, it ranges from 135 to 147 days before the AP exams. Whatever happened to having 180 days of actual hands-on learning? Adding minutes to each day does not make up for fewer days. That is not how learning works. I appreciate the good intentions behind these additional staff-only days. Allegedly, they were created to replace the professional collaboration time that used to happen during our early release Mondays. But please understand that replacing consistent teacher planning time with entire days off from school is not helpful to teachers or students. As one teacher recently told me, we can't get any traction in learning with the constant interruptions to instruction. Another colleague who teaches English language learners described how her students had spent the last 5 days off in their apartments and, quote, as they told her, bored. There is only so much content they can complete on their own without teacher support. As for those students who were taking the ACT on Tuesday after being away from school for 4 days in a row, how well do you think they did? Any psychologist of adolescence will tell you that their heads were probably not fully in the mindset of school or high-stake test after such a prolonged absence. Please understand that every lost instructional day means lost opportunities of close reading, practicing writing, collaborative problem solving, conducting a science lab, of having students engage in discussing controversial issues in a civil manner. It means one less lesson on cell division, personal finance, or perhaps even learning how to recognize early signs of fascism. These lessons and opportunities matter. They matter for all students, but they especially matter for those students who are struggling with overcoming the opportunity gap in education. I find it ironic that MMSD wants more students to be enrolled in AP classes.
Emily.
Yet how are we supporting those students? I will email the rest of this.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have Mark, and then following will be Rebecca Hale.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Mark Richner. I'm a parent of 2 Marquette Elementary School students, and I'm a 3rd grade teacher at Marquette and the MTI rep. I'm concerned by the district's cut to staff at Lapham and Marquette. The schools have lost 3 SEAs who serve students whose needs must be met, and 1 classroom teacher whose loss will result in 2nd grades at the maximum 27 count. A class size at a maximum set in 2017 is not kids first and will not meet students' needs in our post-pandemic classrooms. As often happens at these small schools, student numbers will likely go up as the year begins, causing a teacher to be hired at the last possible moment. This pattern of surplusing and then hiring late signals that teachers are disposable and goes against creating strong school communities and putting kids first. I urge the board to take action by updating the class size policy to maintain optimal class sizes for effective learning and truly putting kids first. Thank you for your time.
Hello. Hello, my name is Rebecca Hale, and I teach orchestra, AP Music Theory, and General Music at East High School. I attended last week's board meeting from 5 to 9 p.m., so I'm well aware of the conversation that happened around allocation and budget. Today, I'm just here to share my experience during this year's allocation process as a new-ish educator to the district. My husband, Josh, and I moved from a small town in Mississippi to Madison in the summer of 2022. Madison is our destination city with the cultures and values that match our own. From my interview with my principal to meeting my colleagues at East, I felt like the district valued their teaching workforce and music education. I had a big dream to grow the music program and offer music education to as many students as possible. Since starting at the district, my East Orchestra program has grown from 65 students to 100 students, with a projected number of 150 students for the 25-26 school year. I'm actually having to start conversations on solutions to accommodate a quickly growing program that could easily reach 200 students within the next couple years. This growth is a reaction to opportunity. The opportunities for students to improve as a musician, the opportunity to be part of a community, to show off their skills to the community and give back the gift of music to a city that they love. This requires time during my lunch, my break hours, where my students that don't have the instrument at home or can't afford private lessons, I practice with them in the room. Time after school, I organize performances around the community so my students feel like they are working on their music for a reason. I spend my weekends putting events together to help build the Oxford community on the east side. There has been a lot of talk about declining enrollment numbers leading to changes in allocation, but I was not worried because everyone, my colleagues, my students, their parents, has been telling me how great a job I was doing. So imagine how surprised I was when I was told that we are losing allocation in the music department a day before our February 26th combined concert. All I felt in that moment was that the work I have been doing, the time I had spent in and outside class, had meant nothing. I felt that the district didn't care about music education and the growth of my program. I wondered, was moving here a mistake? Did I trust my dream, my future to the wrong district? I was worried about how I no longer get to offer support to my students, how I no longer fulfill my equitability mission to provide music education to more students, how without my full attention at East High School, the momentum in growing our little community would slow down. And all the time I spent planning for the future has suddenly become pointless. I am shaken now, even though I was fortunate to have my allocation restored during the adjustment process. It's hard for me to trust the district to support my long-term goals. Part of me wonders, is it worth it to continue my mission? How much do I need to prove that I'm doing a good job and that my kids they deserve a good music education? This whole entire non-transparent allocation budget cuts process has shaken the trust of teachers, students, and parents, and it will take a lot of work to build that trust again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next is, I think it's Leon Alvarado. And then our final speaker will be Daniel, I think it's Hagden. I apologize in advance.
Hello, my name is Leon Alvarado. I am 19 years old, and last June I graduated from Madison East High School. As a very recent student in MMSD, I think it's completely unreasonable to cut staffing. I've been in classrooms with more students than chairs. I've watched teachers struggle to effectively teach their classes because there's simply too many students at a time. I've seen students burn out because they can't get the support they need to succeed despite educators' best efforts. I've been hearing from my friends and my little siblings who are still in school complain about how class sizes are simply too large for them to learn effectively. And with more open housing in the area, prompting more families to move in, they're just going to get larger. Teachers have had to split class sections in half because they've exceeded 60 students. Teachers can't teach, students can't learn, and now we're trying to make it harder. I'm planning on going to school for education and have to wonder whether my future is one where students are provided the best education possible in supportive and engaging environments, or one where teachers and staff are barely able to connect with their students because there aren't enough people to teach them. Is this staffing cut really because we have a surplus and can't afford to pay them? Or is it because you're willing to provide students with a weakened education so long as there's fewer people on your payroll? Thank you.
Hello, am I all right? Okay. My name is Dan Kaplan. I am a father of a student at Lowell Elementary. I think everyone else has spoken really eloquently and made excellent points about the budget allocation cuts. So I want to reiterate those things, but I think I can add something new just to what's been voice today as someone who cares a lot about how our East Side education system is working, but doesn't feel like they can devote the amount of time to stay very involved in the particulars of it. So what I've sort of learned from listening through this that I think a lot of other parents will probably take away from is that the class size maximum seem like shocking. That seems like kind of a fundamentally wrong thing. I can't really understand how it's justified that class sizes could be that big. I also think that the main thing that parents care about are the people who can make deep and important connections with their kids at school, and that ultimately what like really matters is the ability for them to do that. And so things like small class sizes and having teachers have better compensation and like more choices related to their healthcare options, all of that sort of ultimately seems like the big picture is just do things so that teachers feel like they can make deep connections with kids, because that's what will actually change kids' lives. And so that seemed like the really big picture thing that I hope the board can stay aware of as it navigates all of the very difficult bureaucratic crap you guys have to navigate with all the time to make decisions. I mean, it should be acknowledged that that's really hard. And so I value too that you have to go through and do that work, because it sucks. And someone has to do it. And so I think I want to say that, like, I really thank you for doing that. And this seems like one of those moments where looking back and staying more focused on the ultimate end goal should like make us have some other solutions to this budget problem. So thanks. That's what I want to say.
Thank you to all of our registered speakers. I also wanted to acknowledge there are individuals who registered tonight but did not wish to speak. One person who was in favor of teacher allocation and making sure that we adjust for large class sizes. Another person also here about writing about teacher allocations, wanting more transparency in the funding and restoring teachers. Another one just simply in support of teacher allocations. Another wants to avoid cuts, and another also wants to avoid cuts and wants more staff to work with our students, not less. So I just wanted to acknowledge those. Thank you all for coming tonight. Okay, we will now move through our agenda, and we will go into our approval of the minutes. I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the regular meeting dated February 24th, 2025. All right,
Second, Maya.
in favor. Oh, and Megan, your advisory vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move into board president's announcements and reports. First, we're going to start with some congratulations. Metro High educator Kate Shedler was recognized as Teacher of the Month by the National At-Risk Education Network in Wisconsin for her outstanding work with vulnerable students. Alex Heinrich of Memorial earned 2 Division I state titles in swimming and diving, first in the 100 free and first in the 100 fly. MMSD head cook Annette Jackson was featured by Madison Magazine for her dedication to providing breakfast and lunch to all elementary and middle school students. And the Velma Hamilton Middle School 8th grade choir performed at the Wisconsin State Capitol Rotunda Thursday as part of the Wisconsin Music Educator Association's Capitol Concert Series. They were the only middle school in the state invited. Vice President Pearson will pick up with some more announcements.
Yeah, it was a beautiful concert. MMSD 2025 academic calendar, 2025-2026 academic calendar. Many of you may be excited to hear that MMSD 2025-2026 academic calendar is now available online at mmsd.org. Each year, a committee of district staff and MTI representatives meet over a series of months to finalize important dates for the upcoming school year. We are appreciative of all the hard work of all who had a hand in finalizing next year's calendar, as well as the patience of all of our MMSD families and staff as this work took place. Community engagement. Thank you to the community members, staff, and students who participated in the first round of input sessions for Sherman, Shabazz, Blackhawk, and Gompers. We look forward to the continued engagement with the community as these projects for the referendum are further refined. Your input is important and valued.
And then to close us out in tonight's consent agenda, the board would like to acknowledge and thank all individuals and organizations that have donated to the district, especially Souls for Souls, which is donating shoes to support students experiencing homelessness or out of home care, and also for families as supplies are available. Over the next 5 years, they will donate 5,000 pairs of shoes, which is valued at $200,000. So many thanks. And with that, I will pass it on over to Superintendent Gothard for his.
Thank you, President Nichols, members of the board, community. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the schools that I've been able to visit. I've shared with many that I'm now doing structured visits at each of our schools, a chance for me to spend time with students, with staff, with the principals, trying to understand what it's like to be a student, a staff, a parent, a stakeholder in the day. And of course, based on the time of the year, the themes of the meetings have changed greatly in terms of what's on the mind of staff, but I found them to be very valuable. And though many of you know that I have a deep background in Madison, I have learned so much from those visits, and I really look forward to it. I'll be at Blackhawk Middle tomorrow, and I think I'm at LVM later this week as well. Next is this week. Last week, I was at the Wisconsin Association of School Boards Day at the state capitol. Here you see in the picture Senator Ratcliffe, many of you know, and a group of board members and administrators from what I can see in the photo, many of who I don't know, but I believe most of them are from Dane County. This is kind of a local delegation. The day started with a panel of both GOP members and DFL leaders where we got a chance to hear from them, their perspectives on the upcoming or the ongoing session. I have to share with you, I did I think there was a hint of optimism in the room, and just the fact that from all four of the members, regardless of their party, support to special education funding came up. And they're hearing loud and clear is the number one issue that I think every single one of their colleagues is talking about. That's a long way from having a budget, a target, and an approval on said budget. But it's definitely a start and something that I think we need to continue to build on. Advocacy is going to continue to be important for me. I know it is for the board, and I need it to be for the entire community as well. Some of what we heard tonight, and trust me, I'm not blaming any of the decisions on factors that are out of our control. You all know that I make recommendations to the board for their approval, but it would be very much helpful if we could get more than 28% of the reimbursement on special education. 28% of the reimbursement on special education, which means that every year, or this year, we're spending $66.4 million to close a gap that the state has not made for funding for federal IDEA services that we provide to students, and we do so ably and as inclusive as we possibly can. So it's past time for us to get some movement on special education. The state superintendent's budget raised it to 90% of reimbursement. Governor Evers' budget was raised it to 60%. Just to give you some real numbers on that, it'd be about $30 million in additional revenue for MMSD if we got 60%, and another $30 million if it was 90%. One key thing that I want to point out, the reason that we only received 28% this year is because it was a some certain figure, meaning that the agreement was over 30%, but because it was some certain, there's flexibility in how much states or districts actually get reimbursed. With a sum sufficient number, that number is fixed. So if it's 30 or if it's 60%, you get a 60% reimbursement. If it's 90%, you get 90% on your reimbursement. So very important as we're advocating sum sufficient and 90% are actually fully funded. I mean, why would we ask for anything less than that, especially when the state has a $4 billion surplus? So again, this advocacy is going to continue to be important. I'll do my part, but I know for a fact that more voices are going to lead to better success. Recently, I was also able to travel and attend the ASA National Conference, was able to award Superintendent Walter Gonsolin of Jefferson County Public Schools outside of Birmingham, Alabama, as this year's National Superintendent of the Year. Truly a highlight for me to watch somebody else receive that award and be able to walk away knowing that I'm going to get back to Madison and continue to do great work. So that year is over. It's been quite a year with a lot of change, but I'm really proud to have represented MMSD and our association awarding Dr. Gonsolin's this year's award. Right here in this room, we had the 26th, I couldn't believe it when Dr. Rose said this, 26 years, 100 Black Men of Madison, Inc. has been sponsoring the African American History Academic Challenge. We have some veterans on the board from that, and we have some parents who were in the audience celebrating and cheering on their children as well. But so nice to see Dr. Rose and so many of the other 100 Black men who have been doing this for years continue to make space for this longtime partnership and to allow our students to show off their stuff in a competitive spirit. La Follette High School and Spring Harbor students took first place in their divisions and advanced to the regional competition on Friday. I've not heard the results of Friday's competition. Spring Harbor, they were on it, so that's great. Excellent. Spring Harbor Middle School, congratulations. They did a great job here, and it does not surprise me at all that they took first place at the regional. So wonderful job. And again, thank you to our partners. Lastly, want to end by sharing some highlights. Madison was named, and this is important for us. You heard tonight how many people are tuning in to the tremendous growth and changing in our city. And when we see headlines like this, that Madison is ranked number 3 on the list of best cities for the working families in 2025, not only do we have to promote that, but we have to live up to that as well. And trust me, as I hear people talking tonight, it's a challenge that I accept. It absolutely is. So it's important. This is on you'll see this on our website. I think it's important to let people know about our city. And you know for a fact that when you're as someone who's moved to new cities, one of the first things you do is look at school websites. It's a really important part of who we are and who our city is as well. So Madison also ranked number 8 in pre-K through 12 schools. People truly want to come to Madison. And one of the ways that I've been sharing this, and I believe it went out in the message that was sent out, certainly to staff, I think it went in our Family Connection newsletter as well. But Madison, the city of Madison has put out a online housing tracker. And this is a transparent way that all of us, other than me driving and coming back and telling the team, did you see this building? Well, we've got it on a dashboard now where you can look at where the city is growing or where it's about to grow in terms of available housing. Some of it affordable, some maybe not so much, but at any rate, there's going to be great mobility to our city and within our city. And that's why it's important that I point this out. There's ways that we look at that kind of growth. And I do understand why, and I'll use Hawthorne as an example. My team has heard me say this many times because for months I've been hearing the Hawthorne community say, we've got this new complex coming, right at the old Gardner's Bakery site. And I'm like, yeah, there's construction all over the city. Well, about 6 weeks ago, I went to Hawthorne and parked in the back parking lot there. And I could barely move because I felt like that complex was on top of me. So not only is it nearing completion, but it is massive. And these are the kinds of things that are happening throughout our city that we have to pay attention to. But there's many ways that we have to pay attention to it. One is growth in terms of new families, new children coming into Madison. But the other way, and it's so difficult for us to sometimes understand this, but movement around our city, which means that students are going to be mobile and they might attend different schools, or they might want to stay at their current school, depending on where that move is. So we have to look at both. And of course, we want to keep our children here and our families here. We also want to welcome new families as well. So as it relates to the allocation, I won't get into deep details on this right now. It's not really the purpose of my report, but I think it's important as we talk about the growth of the city, how are we going to adjust? And one way that I'll share with you is at the elementary level. I know that in a lot of the communication we got, we're hearing from a few schools, but this really is district-wide, and here's how. First of all, I want to commend the board, our staff, and our community, because in last school year, you increased elementary sections by 47. 47 new sections to reduce class size was the investment and commitment that you made. And I think it's commendable that you did that. And we heard that tonight. This last year, for our projected enrollment for 25-26, we made adjustments because of the changes in some of the schools' enrollment based on the numbers that we have. And yes, there are some areas that we look in. The last thing we want to do is push people right to the maximum. That is, we try to minimize that as much as possible in the event that things do change. And things could change in both directions. We all know that as well. But for this coming school year, there are 10 schools, elementary schools, that are down one section. There are 4 that are down 2. There are 2 that are down 3. And that's based on the needed sections that they have in that school. There are 2 schools that are up 0.5. There are 3 that are up 1 section. There are 4 schools that are up 2 sections. There are 2 schools that are up 3 sections. So we've allocated sections again. Last year, you were up 47. This year, we're down 6 from that. We're still 41 more sections than we were 2 years ago. And again, that says a lot about the commitment that you have to maintain those small class sizes at elementary. When you get into secondary schools, it's a little bit more dynamic. There is a lot more room for some site-based decisions to be made, in addition to just lump sum allocation that buildings get. And it's even different from middle school to high school. But to stay with this theme of our dynamic city and our city changing, we have one middle school that is projected to have 130 more students next year. And I talked to that leader today, and there is a bit of panic because in 1 year, you are drastically changing the physical layout of that school. And there are some real challenges. So with this kind of growth, yes, it's a great opportunity. And this leader was so quick to say, it's a good problem to have, but it's still a challenge. It really is going to be a challenge. This, I'm afraid, board, community, staff is going to be the new reality for Madison and for MMSD. And it's one that I'm learning tonight that I've got to find a new way to do this in a way that's side by side with people. I can't hold on all the information I know, even though a lot of the information I receive is from you all. People say, did you know this new development is coming? Or the Wisconsin State Journal reports a new development. First I've heard it. I'm blaming no one. I think we all know that Madison is expected to grow by 100,000 people in the next 50 years. And that's putting a tremendous stress on our great city. And one, again, that I'm not going to run away from or shy away from, one that I'm going to embrace and work with our people, all of our people, and you, so that we can deliver what we heard tonight. And we've heard so much people want from MMSD. They want from their leaders. They want from their board members. They want from their school communities. So with that, I just wanted to give a little bit more information on some of the available data that I have right now. And again, I will share with you that this is also a snapshot in time. You know that the board also approves unallocated resources that we do find reasons that we have to make adjustments. Sometimes they're in September after third Friday count, but more times than not, they happen in between today and September as well, if there is a reason to warrant that. So I just want to share a little bit of highlight on that. I know there's not really a portion for me tonight to go in any deeper on this, but I thought it was a good opportunity with the changes our city is seeing right now and will be in the future to kind of align that with some of our thinking around adjusting how our resources are distributed throughout the city. So with that, I'll conclude my report, President Nichols.
Thank you for that, Dr. Gothard. I appreciate you incorporating some updates on the allocation and kind of reminding us of the big picture of kind of sections, at least across elementary, as well as some of the dynamic factors that you said happen at secondary. I think, and this is not necessarily for you to respond to tonight, I think one of the things that has come through a couple of our meetings now, right? Like our operations work group, our board meeting tonight, and plus other ways that folks communicate with board members, is some desire to have a better understanding of how the decisions are being made. And so my hope is that as you continue to be in our district and are better understanding what that process looks like from February through spring, that we can continue to try to make that more transparent for folks. So it may not change every single outcome, but I think if people have a better understanding of the why and the how, it might also help.
Yeah, and President Nichols, board members, I'll share with you that, you know, it's three, even more, I mean, distinct ways of how it's done. I mean, looking at enrollment and sections at elementary is very different than course selections and things that we're offering at the secondary level. But again, I think that's going to be important. So perhaps a way to kind of isolate and really focus on level by level at a time and do this work in a way that I can report back to you in the community. To start with, we've already started talking about clearly from the feedback we've received, there's improvement that needs to be made. And we've already started discussions about what we'd like to do differently. We don't want to wait until next year.
Yeah.
We want to start now.
Right.
With projecting really good enrollment, making sure people understand what numbers we use, and making decisions accordingly.
Thank you so much. Board Member Vandermeulen? Yes.
Yeah, my question, I respect you for saying all of that, and but my quick question is, because I didn't write it down right, what is our projected enrollment? Because I know it's slightly higher than something, and I did not write it down. And I've been combing my notes trying to find it, and
Yeah, President Nichols, board members, board member Vandermeulen, I don't have the overall right in front of me. I get it right. You know, for overall, but again, as I described to you, at like that one school, it's up 130. There's other schools where it's down. The projection is down 50 as well. But I'll make sure that I have the accurate number that we've used for our point in time for allocation purposes. I think that's important as well.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your report. And thank you also for being up at the state capitol last week advocating for an increase in special education funding. All right, we are going to report on items that proceeded through the instruction work group held on March 3rd, 2025. And I'm going to turn that over to Chair Caldwell.
So much, Board President Nichols. At our most recent instruction work group, we discussed class size and student well-being and mental health. In our next instruction work group, we will be discussing our partnerships and our community schools. We'll hear from our entire district in relationship to the meaningful partnerships we are coordinating throughout the community, as well as the role of our community schools with a system-wide approach to that work.
Thank you. We'll next hear a report on items that proceeded through the operations work group held on March 10th, 2025. Chair Castro.
Thank you. We held our operations work group on March 10th. We received updates regarding food and nutrition, the referendum relating to construction, and then we provided direction on healthcare, the employee handbook process, staffing, and further development of the budget, specifically with revenue projections. Our next meeting is slated for April 21, 2025, where we will receive our first draft of the budget, get an update regarding the insurance discussions, negotiations, and the handbook. And so that'll be April 21.
Thank you. There were not action items that proceeded through either of the work groups that we have to take action on tonight, so I will go to our consent agenda. I move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all of the motions set forth in Section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the March 17th, 2025 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his, her, or their affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated, hereby subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board.
Second, Maya.
Any separations? Board Member Vandermeulen?
Yes, 10.8, 10.18, 10.19, 10.20, and 10.21.
Okay, so let me repeat those. 10.8, 10.18, 10.19. Can you repeat the rest?
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to follow. I apologize. 10.20 and 10.21.
Okay.
And I think Ali has.
Oh, I'm sorry. Board Member Muldrow? And 10.22. Okay. All right. So the motion is on the rest of the consent items. Megan, your advisory vote? All those in favor? All right. Thank you. That passes unanimously. All right. Let me go back to 10.8. Hold one moment. I move that the Board of Education approve a contract to purchase the video boards at Lucier and Manfield stadiums. It says to be used by all 4 comprehensive high school athletic teams and provide training as set forth in quotes from Daktronics. Cost will be reimbursed using sponsorship advertising agreements held by the district. Total costs are anticipated to not exceed $287,464. Can you second that?
Second.
All right, Board Member Vandermeulen?
Yes, I pulled this. The scoreboards are great. I'm a coach's kid. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to vote for this because until I am sure that we can provide the staff that is required for educating our youth, I cannot afford such expenditures such as videos, such as new scoreboards, such as anything like that, because it's just a building. It's not a person. It's not a staff. It's not teaching. And that's all I wanted to say. The other 3 are really quick pulls.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this? Board Member Muldrow? Okay. Megan, your advisory vote. All right. All those in favor? Aye. All right. That, and then all those opposed. All right. Thank you. That passes 6-1. All right. I'll move down to 10.18. Okay. I have to read the motion. I move that the Board of Education award the bid of $1,025,000 from GBR Corporation, $215,640 from Pioneer Roofing, and $3,704,908 from GE Ridderford Company for a total cost of $4,945,548 to replace failing sections of roof at La Follette and West High Schools with funding from the referendum 2020 and building services maintenance accounts. All right.
Sorry, second over again because it wasn't heard. And my question is on this particular item. I know we recently renovated the new schools. Is this just typical maintenance that occurs? I just was confused by that. Then the other three, I'm just curious if they were bid.
Okay, let's stay on this one at the moment.
Yeah, I'm jumping on.
President Nichols, members of the board, board member Van, I'm going to have Senior Executive Director Scott Chiak provide information on this item.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes, we are going back to Ref 20 funds to the stuff that was cut out of the first initial section. That was value engineered out. So we're going back and correcting the roofs at La Follette and West for critical leaks we have.
That is super important. That's all I needed to know. And my other three are all.
Okay, board member Muldrow.
Can I just ask how much is remaining in the facilities referendum funding from 2020?
That's like
How much funding is remaining?
right around 7 million.
Right around 7 million. And so after this, we'll have about 2 million left.
Correct. And we're working on doing other things to clean up the schools for the punch list items as well. Things that we value engineered out.
Yeah, it's hard to.
We got to hear you a little better.
We're also going back and addressing things from next board meetings. We value engineered back into the schools that were taken on from the beginning.
Does this impact the even distribution of resources related to that referendum?
No.
Okay. And so the remaining about 2 million, will that be evenly split between the 4 comprehensive high schools?
Yes, that is the plan.
Okay. And is there any additional work related to Capitol High? I'm sorry, I'm kind of related to Capitol High, or like we just renamed this elementary school?
Yes, there will be a few more. One is for capital for louvers for a ventilation system, and there will be a few more for Southside as well, Lynn and Gary.
Okay, thank you.
Board member Mosner Feltham.
Can you speak to what do you anticipate like our next super exciting referendum projects? Will we be replacing the roofs on those like shortly after we renovate them, or is there a different plan for this next referendum?
For the renovation projects,
Upcoming. I'm asking, like, we just renovated these high schools and now we're going back to fix the roofs. So obviously we missed something in the first round of referendum. So I'm asking you to speak on your plans to make sure that doesn't happen again.
yes, that's one of the valued part of our job is to make sure this infrastructure is complete. That is part of our initial plans, and infrastructure first, and then teaching and learning secondly after that.
Great, thank you.
Mike, in your advisory vote? All those in favor? All those? Okay, looks like that passed unanimously. Thank you. All right, 10.19. I move that the Board of Education approve a reconciliation to increase the purchase order 23002057 for referendum-related moving and storage services provided by C. Coakley Relocation Systems in the total amount of $438,600.10 for a project total of $1,443,884.45 funded by the referendum 2020 non-construction services budget.
Second, Nikki Millen.
Yes, Vandermeulen.
Yes, just concerned that we didn't bid out some of these as much as I thought we possibly would. Is that because that we had referendum agreements and so we didn't need to? That's where I was confused.
President Nichols, members of the board, board member Vandermeulen, Executive Director Chiak talk about the process. Again, remember, just to refamiliarize everyone, an occupied construction site, there was, a lot of equipment that had to be moved out in order to conduct this work, and this item is related to that.
Yeah, and it was bid out and used. We had to use multiple vendors, and those vendors were spread across the 4 schools. This was actually, Coakley was the one left at Memorial. They also helped at another site as well.
That makes more sense.
All right, Megan, your advice, thank you. Megan, your advisory vote? All those in favor?
I withdraw my,
Okay. It looks like that passed unanimously. Okay, well, these have already been separated, so I still need to read the motion. So Board Member Vermeulen has indicated that for 10.20 and 10.21, you don't necessarily want discussion on it.
correct.
But I'm gonna still read the motions because they were separated when we took the previous vote. I move that the Board of Education approve an increase to purchase order 23004262 provided by Anchor Moving in the total of $4,200 for a project total of $1,171,496.43, funded by the referendum 2020 non-construction services budget.
Second.
Perfect. Megan, your advisory vote. All those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. And 10.21. I move that the Board of Education approve the replacement of the Memorial Spectator Gym 1505 bleachers by the Goodson Company for a total of $244,000 funded by the fiscal year 26 building services operating budget.
Second.
Okay, do you have discussion on this one? All right. Megan, your advisory vote? All those in favor? All right, thank you. That passes.
I'm opposed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Those opposed? All right, thank you. That passes 6-1. All right, let's go to 10.22. I move that the Board of Education accept a LEAP grant in the $20,000 from the Green Bay Packers and US Cellular to enhance technology and STEM education at Leopold Elementary.
Second?
All right. Board Member Muldrow, this was yours, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I pulled this just simply to express our gratitude for this support for our Leopold Elementary School student. Want to thank the Green Bay Packers and US Cellular for allowing our students to have greater access to technology and STEM technology and STEM education at an early age. This investment will go a long way in supporting our young people, and I'm tremendously appreciative of this donation.
Thank you. Megan, your advisory vote? All those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. All right, other reports to the board. City County Schools Collaborative Committee. We did not meet in March, and our next proposed meeting is on April 9th of 2025. Yeah, I was just going to share an update. So the update is, and Board Member Simkin spoke to this at our last board meeting, but we do want the board to know that that committee has been having several months of conversations about the amount of staffing it takes and support currently from the city. And the city has also been reviewing its committees and committee structures. So there is a proposal at this point to repurpose that committee moving forward with a new kind of more deepened commitment on the joint purpose of the committee. And Dr. Gothard has been taking the lead in his role to connect with the mayor and hopefully the county exec fairly soon so that we can kind of draft the purpose of that committee and to make it more impactful. So we did not meet in March because we were still giving Dr. Gothard some time to make his rounds in communication. And then the thinking is, although the committee has not voted on it yet, the committee's only been in discussion about it. The thinking is the committee would then move to a quarterly meeting, and there would be joint issues of kind of set on the agenda between the superintendent, the mayor, and the county exec. So that's just kind of the update. So hopefully we'll be able to decide more at the next meeting on April 9th. Board Member Muldrow.
For President Nichols, I want to thank you for your service on the course of the last 3 years. My hope is that as we navigate the complexity of our current political reality in terms of our relationship to the state and our relationship to the federal government, that we're working together concretely, locally in the best interests of our children. And my concern in having this committee meet fewer times is that MMSD will absorb an inappropriate amount of responsibility for this community's children. I think that we have to be able to work in partnership with the county and in partnership with the city to serve our young people. I also think in terms of the distribution of resources that is relevant to local government and governance, our county is positioned a lot better than us to build a new jail than we are to build a new school. And if we are going to work together effectively, we have to kind of reconcile the different realities of how we as bodies are positioned. So my hope is that there is greater shared responsibility. And that's not my way of saying I hope the city keeps this committee entirely in terms of its staffing, but I do hope that it is split 3 ways, that 4 months out of the year, the school district is owning this work to a greater extent. 4 months out of the year, our county board supervisors are owning this work and facilitating this committee. And 4 months out of the year, our city is doing that. I think that even distribution of labor allows for us to alleviate some of the work from the city while remaining committed to doing this work in collaboration. I understand that there's a lot of nuance to this, and I look forward to the update that informs how we are moving forward, but I thought it was important to state my hope. I think we're really dependent on local government and our ability to work together right now, and I think it would be a mistake to back away from opportunities to be in collaboration at a time like this.
Thank you for that. Dr. Gothard.
President Nichols and Board Member Muldrow, really good points. And first, I just want to say there's nothing formal right now. There isn't a new ordinance or a new agreement that's been drawn. These are discussions only. I do think it's important for you to express, elected to elected, how you'd like to see this go, because there are some differences between the work that I do with Mayor Rhodes Conway and with County Executive Agard. You know, and here's an example of that. I guess I didn't know this because I've never counted, thank goodness. There's 37 county commissioners, you know, and not all of them are in Madison. So that's a real difference when I think about how I approach Dane County as a body. So, you know, and again, I'm not saying we shouldn't, because we have to work with them. They're our partners, but I mean, there is some nuance to this without a doubt. So I think we're getting closer. I did have a good meeting with County Executive Agard last week.
Good.
Dr. McCray and I met. So I don't think we've made any final decisions. And I do think that the ongoing work is important as well. As an example, I'm not on, or I haven't been, I think I came to one of the meetings President Nichols had me come in, but I'm working with our city and county partners all the time too. So are there some different spaces that we don't have to codify everything, but at least make more intentional, where perhaps a board member or two join me in some of those meetings, or likewise, I join you in some of those meetings, I think would be another informal way to continue the strengthening the partnership as well.
Board Member Simkin.
So thank you, Board Member Muldrow, for those thoughts. I just want to share in this space what I shared during that last meeting with the committee, which is that I think that while there is a very strong desire to make some sort of structural change with the committee. I think that keeping the relationship with county and city feels really critical, and figuring out a way to make sure that we have regular communication and thoughtful conversation around our community's shared responsibility for children feels critical. I do see an opportunity for some collaboration around advocacy. And when we're thinking about just the need for greater funding and for our children within our community, I think this is a really appropriate space for those conversations to be happening. And I think that we could be effective advocates together with the city and with the county.
Board Member Muldrow.
I greatly appreciate that perspective, Board Member Simkin. I do think I want to emphasize that whatever configuration of this work we do, I have nervousness that it bypasses the bodies of governance that were elected to serve our greater community. And so, although I greatly appreciate the work of our mayor and our county executive, I also appreciate the work of their boards and their city council and this board and our role in being able to collaborate effectively with the community. And so I think this is a moment in which it benefits us greatly not to silo executive leadership and to work in the greatest possible collaboration that we can, obviously in an organized and well-facilitated way. So I very much appreciate you highlighting what it looks like for board members to kind of attend spaces in collaboration with you and for you to attend spaces in collaboration with us. I am hoping that we have a system that empowers that level of communication and collaboration very intentionally.
Mhm. All right, Student Senate.
Okay, so I want to make a quick correction in board docs. The agenda that you see there is from February 26th. We did have a meeting on March 12th, but that is not what we did. So on February 26th, Dr. Gothard and Mr. Affelt met with us in our mental health committee to talk about a potential event related to student wellness later on this semester. So thank you so much for being willing to give us some of your time and your support through that. We also met with the Superintendent Advisory Committee, where our students were able to participate in a student panel and give some feedback on just different aspects of education that were good, were areas for improvement. So that was a great opportunity as well before going into committee time. And then on March 12th, we went over the election information for the next president and Board of Education representative. Right now, our elections are going to be taking place in May, with the next president and Board of Education rep officially starting their terms in June. And then we had another mental health committee meeting about the event and then went back into committee time. Our next meeting is on April 2nd. That's all.
Megan, it was great to hear and see all of your work at the instruction work group. So it's nice to hear that work is continuing on. So thank you for all of that. All right, Madison School and Community Recreation Advisory Committee.
That's me. Thank you, President Nichols. Registration for MSCR summer programs opened last Monday. Over 10,500 people have already registered, but there are still many options for awesome spring and summer activities for the whole family. Non-resident registration begins on March 24th. Adult softball registration open today. It's the perfect time to get your team together. Board of Ed team? Anybody? No, not me either. But other people should. Spread the word that MSCR summer jobs are now available. We cannot make the programs the community loves happen without the hundreds of dedicated seasonal staff working in them. There are open jobs for young people as well. So check out the MSCR website.
Nice. All right, we do need to dissolve the Citizens Ad Hoc Committee for the naming of Southside Elementary. So I'm going to read this motion. I move that the Board of Education dissolve the Citizens Ad Hoc Committee relative to the naming of Southside Elementary School. The school was renamed to Lori Mann Carey Elementary School on February 24th, 2025.
Second, Maya.
Megan, your advisory vote? All those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. Policy Committee.
Yeah, so since our last regular Board of Education meeting, we, at our special meeting for policy on March 13th, reviewed our Title IX policy, the 8012A, as well as our, it's currently right now considered the Board of Education Ethics policy, which is 1540. And we parsed out possible new policies from that policy. And we are looking to make those updates currently, and we'll come back to the board with an update on where some policies will lie and update our calendar for that.
Thank you. All right, in other business, we do have a strategic framework update. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Ford.
Thank you, President Nichols, members of the board, and have Dr. McCray give an update on our strategic planning update as of today.
We're waiting on Jesse to pull the slide up. No, take your time. Super excited to be here before you today to provide an update on where we are with our strategic framework. I am joined online by Kyle, who is a member of RTI, who will kind of jump in and help me co-present this. Why don't we get started with our next slide, please, Jesse? So the first thing that we kind of wanted to do, can you go back one more slide? There we go. Is think about what we are actually doing. So as a committee, we believe that this body of work is a crucial document for our future and for our district. We are believing that this is truly what our North Star is, and ensuring that this work will provide us to have clear and consistent direction for where we are right now as a district and where we're going. In order to do this work, we have partnered with RTI, which is an international organization that have experience in K-12 strategic partnership. And so we've been working to do with them. And as I stated, Kyle was online who will help me co-present. Next slide. So thus far, we have really been doing a lot of different work, which has really been truly exciting, collecting voices from our different stakeholders. We have put together a steering committee, which is over 80 individuals that include board members, central office staff, community leaders, elected officials, faith leaders, higher education leaders, parents, principals, support staff, teachers, and students. We have held one-on-one with board members to kind of collect their thoughts on our vision for the board. For this work. We've taken the opportunity to look at existing data first. So we've analyzed that data and presented at the same time. Thus far, as of date, we've held over 32 focus groups, hearing from over 600 different stakeholders thus far on where we're going as we're beginning to move into the planning phase. Next slide. So this work is ongoing. We are going to continue to engage our community members with a focus on traditional underrepresented groups. We are working with a number of different organizations in order to be able to partner to do that work, because we do want to make sure that we're hearing from all of our voices. We are going to be sitting in a draft and iterate the foundation principles of the plans. And so you'll see that in a few minutes on exactly what the plan is going, how it's going to be structured, and what we've heard about how the plan should be structured thus far, because we're hearing a lot of different things from stakeholders on what the plan should look like. We will be hearing and holding the implementation on coming up shortly with the number of our stakeholders about how we're going to implement as well as monitor the plan. And then we're going to begin to solicit additional feedback. So we're in a pre-planning where we're gathering information, we're going to draft, and then we're going to go back into the community to make sure that we can hear from the community on what we've drafted thus far before we bring it to our board for them to have that approval. All right, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kyle, who kind of talk about the structure and where we are with this on the next slide.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, and great to be here with all of you again. Again, having met with each of you individually, it's great to be here in front of the whole community to share more about this work. So yeah, I'd love to talk more about the plan structure and sort of our thoughts on approval here for this. If we'll go on to the next slide. As we mentioned, or as Dr. McCray mentioned, right, we've heard from a lot of different people and a lot of different points. We've heard from our steering committee. We've heard from you as individual board members. We've also heard from staff. Really answering questions about what about the last plan has been working? What about implementation has been working? And how should that inform the structure? And a few things really stuck out to us, right? I think that this plan needs to be structurally different from the current plan and really mark a fresh start. We're in a very different place than we were when that last plan was implemented. And so it needs to sort of be different. We also know that there are some things that we need to keep. We don't want to throw everything out, right? The district's focus on equity, systems coherence, we heard a lot about, and also continuous improvement need to really be central tenets of this next plan. But also we've heard that it needs to be more actionable. I think one thing that stood out is I think we got some feedback that it felt like the last plan seemed like we were trying to get the right answers on the quiz, but we weren't necessarily thinking about what actions is this leading toward, right? And it needs to include more clear and measurable goals. So we heard that. We think the structure we're going to propose hopefully can sort of get at some of that feedback. But we also know that it needs to be innovative and unique. It has to meet this moment here in Madison. So let's go on to the next slide here. So at a high level here, I think I kind of break plans down sometimes into two pieces, the foundations being that top real strategic broad direction. So here is sort of our current proposed plan for the structure of this new framework, right? So we will revise the vision statement and add a new mission statement. I think we heard from across the board that folks in the steering committee and even board members as well felt like adding that piece might make the broader vision we have a little more tangible. But we also heard that specifically the core values did not feel actionable enough, right? They're saying the right things, but we don't always see how they impact the practice in MMSD. Also, the goals that currently exist, while aspirational, don't necessarily provide a clear way to measure their progress. So to that end, we are sort of proposing some slight shifts here. We want to have clear goals, 3 to 5 SMART goals, or as smart as we can get them, right? That can be used to measure our progress over the next 5 years. SMART goals, for those that aren't familiar with that term, are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound, right? Those are specific criteria for the types of goals. So really making them feel more real to people, that we can really see our progress each year annually, but then by the time that the plan is at its end. The other thing that we are excited to propose here is replacing the core values with guiding commitments. So in our view, these will be action-based statements that really operationalize the values through the development of focus areas and then strategies, and then guide the decision-making at the district level. You know, we initially talked about these being guiding principles, but really felt like the term commitment better demonstrated MMSD's promise to be accountable for this sort of meaningful progress. And to the best of our ability, we're also going to try to align the goals and commitments while still ensuring the goals are smart. I think that can be a little bit tricky sometimes. There's a lot of things we want to be able to measure that aren't always as cleanly measured as a SMART goal. But we're really going to do our best to make sure we are trying to adhere to that. Again, keeping this action-oriented piece in mind, it needs to feel like that this plan is something that really is living out in our work, and that's really impactful for doing so. And so the RTI team is going to work with the internal project team to draft some initial elements based on the student and community and staff input. We want to make sure we hear from as much of the community first before we start sharing this out. We don't want to put something out there while we're still listening to folks to hear what they're sharing. We want to make sure we have a clear idea of like, here is where We're going to propose them based on what we heard, and then we'll get an opportunity to get some more feedback from board members and steering committee members. This is an iterative process, as Dr. McCray mentioned, and so it won't be that we just give you something and there we are at the end. We will have opportunities for board members, steering committee members, and the community to weigh in on some of these elements before we move. Next slide, please. So once we have that, those foundations in place, it gets to the elements that I always think of as sort of the implementation and monitoring elements. What are the things we're going to implement and that we're going to do, and then monitor over time to really have a good understanding of our success? So we're proposing underneath this broader strategic vision of the foundations that we have 4 to 6 focus areas. Now, these will represent the most important levers to achieve the mission and vision. That language may be familiar to some of you that have been on the steering committee. I've used that around priorities, but we kind of felt like focus areas was a little more concrete for this and this structure of the plan. But each of these focus areas will then have real concrete strategies and then additional metrics to have an idea of our success within these focus areas. Now, all of this is going to be aligned to achieving that mission and vision. And we really are going to try to prioritize thinking about how we can design the plan with the work in mind, to think about alignment as well as that systems coherence piece that I know staff is really, really focusing on right now. Our plan is that this will be developed by staff with the support of RTI, and they will really, again, make sure that these elements are more concrete, the strategies and metrics that can really say, here is the work that we're going to do underneath this broader strategic vision, but will work across all schools and all departments. I'll pass it back to TJ for this next slide. But I think one question we talked about before is, what are the different roles in developing and approving this plan? So I'll pass it back to Dr. McCray for this slide.
Thank you. So the next slide really highlights something that we've been kind of understanding and having a conversation around is, what is the role of the board? And so Kyle basically lifted the new layout and plan of structure of what it looked like. So if you can see what's above the dotted line. So the vision, the mission, the goals, and the guided commitment, those will all have board input and final approval by the board. What's underneath the dotted line, so the focus areas, the strategies, and the metrics, those will have board input, but the final approval will come from the superintendent, who will be working in collaboration with the administration to set those timelines. Next slide. Kyle, this one's you. Finally, I'll turn over to Kyle about implementation.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm talking like I'm unmuted. I'm not. Apologies. Yeah, another important question that we've heard too, I think Ms. Moser-Feltham raised this, was, implementation. When are we going to start implementing this plan? Because some of the planning for next school year is already underway. And if the plan is approved in June, we don't want to feel like we are having to slow things up and wait when planning needs to be going on for the 25-26 school year. So we're proposing that full implementation of the entire strategic plan will begin during the 26-27 school year. But we don't want to lose momentum, right? We don't want to approve a plan in June and then not have it come into play until the following school year. Right, we've built a lot of great community energy around this, I think, to start. We want to keep that moving forward, and same with our staff and our students. So I think we want to include in the plan some guidance on areas. Maybe we could do partial implementation, we could do pilots or anything during the 25-26 school year to make sure we're still moving forward and not just sort of putting a pause on everything. We really want to try to find that balance of how we can make sure implementation really can get kickstarted as a full district, but also not lose the time between this school year and the end of the next school year. The next slide I have is just is our next steps for implementation. I was getting ahead of myself there. So I just wanted to quickly walk you through what are the next things we're going to do here. So we want to try to finish our first phase of community input, that initial, what are your aspirations for the district? What are things we can do well? What are things we can continue to build on? We want to wrap that up in early April. And then we can make sure we have those draft foundations ready for consideration by the board and steering committee in early April. We're trying to be a little flexible. We are doing a little bit of early drafting, but we really don't want to present anything until we feel like we've heard from a broad swath of the community. Then, as Dr. McCray mentioned, we're also going to have a staff development session where we're going to think about these implementation monitoring elements. What should these strategies be? What should some of these metrics be? Are the focus areas? We're thinking about the right focus areas. We're going to do that when we are on site again in April, on April 15th. Later that evening, we're going to convene the steering committee for their third meeting, where they're going to be able to review some of the foundational pieces that we're talking about. They'll be able to see what this structure is we're proposing, see some ideas for mission and vision statements, give us some feedback. After that point, we will launch our second phase of community engagement. This is really going to be around feedback. So seeing some elements we're starting to put together, tell us, what do you think about this? What does this make you think about the work moving forward? This is where we may also include, I think we've talked about a survey potential. We may include a survey here to have all members of the community have an opportunity to weigh in once again. And then these other pieces really are around other meetings we have. We want to present a full draft to the board for initial feedback and consideration on May 19th. I think it's your May board meeting. And then we'll have our fourth steering committee meeting later that week. So you guys will have a chance to weigh in. The steering committee may also provide some other thoughts. And then that tentative board approval would be June 23rd meeting. This is very high level. There are a lot of other pieces moving here and there within this, but I want to give you an idea of what are the biggest rocks for us over the next couple of months. The final slide here, the next one is just that timeline. You've seen it before. Happy to answer any questions about it, but this is just sort of that broader big picture of our timeline. And with that, I don't know if Dr. McCray has anything else he wants to add, but happy to answer any additional questions from board members.
Yep. Turn over to our board member for questions.
Board member Mosner Feltham.
Thank you for your work on this. I'm super excited about having a new strategic plan. A question that I want to put in the room is about the time frame of the plan for 5 years. The reason I am curious about it is because it strikes me as very short. We heard from staff members today that initiative fatigue, initiative churn has negative effects on the experience that our students have in our schools. I agree with that. And so I'm curious about the decision to have a 5-year plan. I'm curious about what kind of, what do I want to say? Like, what kind of assurances either you or the team at RTI can give about how you might frame it or what we might do as a board to ensure that we're not setting ourselves up for initiative churn. That's my question.
So I think two things. One, we're in a place where we can continue to hear from stakeholders just about that, about the 5-year, because some individuals believe like having a fresh plan is also something that we heard throughout this process. So I think we need to continue to test to think about and ask the question directly about a 5, a 7, or a 10-year plan. We haven't asked them that way. And so I think it's how we phrase the question when we continue to solicit feedback will be important.
Can I just clarify? You're saying, I share your sense and RTI's sense that a fresh plan is needed now. Are you saying that there are people who say a fresh plan every 5 years is a good thing?
I don't think that they've ever said the time of how often the fresh year plan is needed. But we are hearing that individuals want to make sure that we're keeping our eyes and keeping up with the trends of what's going on. So keeping that plan to keep up with the trends that are happening.
I see. Okay. I understand. Thank you. I think, I don't know. I think that like education trends and education fads are not always what we should be following. And so I hear what you're saying and I understand. But I remain curious and a little bit apprehensive about what we're going to do to make sure that we don't fall prey to trends and fads.
I also think it's important to think about just like a 5, like let's just say we sat on 5 years, which I'm not saying that we are. It doesn't mean it has to be a new plan, right? But what it does mean is that we're taking the time to solicit, just to hear feedback from individuals, to think about how the plan needs to be updated within a given certain amount of time. So I think it's a number of ways of doing it. And so, but I hear what you are saying.
Okay, and I mean, perhaps it will turn out that one of our commitments or goals or focus areas is about longevity. I guess we'll find out. Okay, thank you.
Correct. Thank you.
Before I call on Board Member Muldrow, Kyle, were you trying to get in on that?
I was just, thank
dialogue?
you. Yes. I was just going to add briefly that I think the most successful plans I've seen are those that sort of maintain sort of some of that long term in mind while also being nimble, right? I think that we, as you know, Dr. McCray said, we can always come back in 5 years and just determine the degree to which we want to sort of overhaul a plan. But I think having a little bit of flexibility to sort of adjust, especially in those implementation and monitoring elements, is really important because there, as you say, there may be things that we see we need to continue. There may be things that, you know, we think are sort of trendy that we don't want to follow, that we can sort of have that flexibility if we need to, and then just sort of come back in a few years and say, yes, we want to change these elements, but keep these elements and know what's working and keep doing with what's working.
Remember Muldrow.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the importance of this work, the importance of our identity as an organization. And I think that some of this work needs to kind of come alive and stay alive. And what I mean by that is like the ability to shape the visual representation of our organization, the art behind who we are, is something that we could be proactively including our students in every single year, right? I think about like Google as a brand that has actually showcased the talents of the children in this district in order to enhance their ability to enact, like in order to enhance their ability to raise awareness around who they are as an organization. I say that to say I deeply value this work. And if I ask my two children who go to school here, what is MMSD's logo or slogan, they don't know. And maybe they'll care more after this process. But at the end of the day, I think there is a way to do this work in concert with the things that touch our young people every single day. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity in doing this work well and not needing to revisit it routinely or having the way we revisit it built in to an ongoing plan with a great deal of intentionality. I think it's really important that we do this work in a way that elevates the voices of our young people and elevates the voices of our educators. And I appreciate the steps we're taking to do that. I also think that I am hoping we engage in some level of reflective process around what the work that has already been done in this interest has actually meant to us as a district and a community, and whether or not there are lessons learned, things that we need to emphasize, need to do to a greater extent, things that we want to move away from. And so I hope as we continue to engage in this conversation, that we become more attached to using this work as a vehicle to promote material benefits to our students, our educators, and our greater community. Thank you so much for this work.
Thank you, Board Member Muldrow. I do also have a question and an appreciation. So I appreciate the update tonight. I appreciate you also being transparent about where you see the board's input and approval, where you see the board's input and the superintendent needing to execute on the strategies. And I also, it's nice to see just the phases of the community engagement. So really wanting to, I appreciate seeing just the level of engagement at various levels across our system and our community in order to inform the plan. It's also, I just wanted to make a note that the draft plan on slide 11 is supposed to come to the board for initial feedback on May 19th, which is like about a year from when you came to MMSD. Can you believe that? Wow. Okay. I mean, I just was saying the dates, you came around May 20th. Wow. Okay. Here is my my question. So when you talked about the plan would be approved tentatively at this point in June, we would already be well into the 25-26 school year in terms of preliminary budget, big decisions already made. So we would focus on a full implementation the following school year with some partial implementation of some things in the 25-26 school year. I guess what I'm wondering is right now, and this might be more of a question for Kyle, but what is the bridge from the current 3 goals we have, the current metrics that we have that have guided and informed our continuous improvement, our district goals, school improvement plans and goals, to whatever the new is going to be? And I'm asking that assuming that some of that gets developed in the 25-26 school year, but I'm asking it because I will only speak for myself. Since we have been back in school from the COVID-19 pandemic, we've had at least 2 baselines change. One was during the pandemic, right? When there were lots of waivers granted, and we had to do that as districts around the country were doing that, right? And then the new baselines got reinstated, and then we saw all the plummeting results. And then you have a state assessment change, and then it's like, well, we have a new baseline and we can't compare. So I think for me as a board member, how are we going to make the bridge on the metrics, on being able to crosswalk, on how our students are learning? Because I don't want to lose that because we're going from one plan with a set of goals to a new plan with a different set of goals. Yeah, so I don't know if you all have a thought about what that looks like in the transition year. And if you don't tonight, it's okay, but it is one of the things that I would want answered at one of these next phases.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question, and I really appreciate the thoughtfulness around the context of the different like start and stop, specifically with the data. I think we don't have a fully baked plan for that just yet, but I will say I think that a lot of the data points that the district has been looking at aren't necessarily going to change wholesale, right? Like some of those data points may still be part of the next set of goals, right? Some of the state testing pieces don't necessarily change, so that may stay in place. I think we will be thinking about that though when we're thinking about the initial design session in April. But then definitely also as we're moving forward, how can we make that bridge? I'm really glad you brought that up, and we will definitely be thinking about that specifically in terms of what's going to happen during the 25-26 school year. But again, I don't think all of the work that has been done at this point is just going to be completely forgotten, right? I think that some of those things will be carried over.
President Nichols, board members, I think what's important to me is that it's absolutely important to honor work that was done in the past, and especially if it's working while we're building momentum. But for you all to be solid, the board that is, for the above the dotted line elements of this plan, to me, that's going to be an anchor point for us to do the alignment work. In fact, that activity by itself, knowing exactly where you're at, maybe it's the same as it was however many years ago when that was created, but there might be differences too. To me, that's a really important jumping off point for us to begin to realign both what we've done in the past and what we want to do in the future.
Can I just clarify one thing? So when I look at slide 9 that looks at the proposed plan structure, where I see the metrics right now are tied to the strategies of a particular focus area. And those may not be student learning metrics. For all I know, they could be implementation metrics, right? Like how would we know that we are achieving and moving this focus area forward? To me, that's a different set of metrics that would give the board and the community an indicator that like we're moving in the right direction towards this big North Star. But I don't know where the focus on our students as learners, like where that sits. I don't know if that's embedded in the bigger goals under the vision and mission, or it's just not as clear to me where they sit, you know, because there are a set of student learning metrics that I think the board also, well, I'll speak for myself, you know, that I would want to see. And then you have your implementation of strategies. So anyway, you get my point. You don't.
I do, and I think it's good feedback as we're continuing, because I think this is the perfect opportunity to have this conversation as we begin to move into the design phase. So what I'm hearing, we can just make sure we're incorporating that work.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments tonight on this update? All right, thank you so much, Dr. McCray. Thank you, Kyle. And thank you, Dr. Gothard. All right, let's move on to our next business item. It looks like we are going to withdraw from the Dane County Schools Consortium, so I'll read the motion. I move to authorize the superintendent to withdraw from the Dane County Schools Consortium effective July 1, 2025, if no fiscal agent is identified by April 1st of 2025. And I move, is that two separate? Go on the first one? Okay.
Second on the first one.
Any questions or comments on this one? All right, Megan, your advisory vote? All right, all those in favor? All right, that is 6-0. All right, I move to authorize the superintendent to vote affirmatively to dissolve the Dane County School Consortium if such a vote occurs.
Second on the second one.
Any questions or comments? Cindy, was there anything you wanted to, yeah, seems you want to tell.
President Nichols, this was my fault. I was thinking she could lip read when no, we've got some follow-up to do after this action. I was just making sure we were going to do that.
Oh, okay. All right. We don't seem to have any questions or comments. Megan, your advisory vote? All right, all those in favor? All right, that passes 6-0. All right, with that, there is no old or new business for this meeting, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Maya.
All right, board member Mosner Feltham seconded. Megan, your advisory vote? All right, all those in favor? Thank you, motion passes. We are adjourned.